One, Donald Trump on the floor of the New York City Stock Exchange suggests it's morning in America, except for this weird little wart on humanity that is celebrating a murderer in New York City. Let's see if we can break down the psychology of support for Luigi Mangione, who allegedly killed UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, with Dr. Drew Pinsky. 2, a plane crash lands in Texas on the highway. And it turns out, according to Senator Josh Hawley, that the airlines are charging you. They're making money. They're incentivizing flight attendants to confiscate your bag. Plus, while we're talking about what's in the air above New Jersey? Is there an Iranian mothership launching drones? 3, why is it we know so much about Luigi Mangione, but we still know very little about the man who tried to kill the president-elect of the United States? The difference in treatment from the media with Outkick's Bobby Burack. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, on the Fox News Facebook page, and always on demand if you're listening on terrestrial radio by simply heading over to Spotify or Apple and hitting subscribe. We're also available every Monday through Thursday live at foxnews.com and on Fox News YouTube by hitting subscribe. I don't know if you boys back in New York have seen this, but you had quite a day up there in the Big Apple. For the first time since 1985, a would-be or sitting president of the United States visited the New York City Stock Exchange and rang the bell. That's what happened this morning in New York. Let's watch.
Well, thank you very much. This is an honor, a tremendous honor. I brought some of our compatriots along with us. They're going to do a beautiful job for you for the next 4 years. And it's really been something very special. And I have to say, Time Magazine getting this honor for the second time. I think I like it better this time, actually. But we did a good job. We had a great first term, despite a lot of turmoil caused unnecessarily. But the media's tamed down a little bit. They're liking us much better now, I think.
That's him receiving Times Magazine's Person of the Year. He took that honor. They recognized it on the floor of the New York City Stock Exchange, and I want to share with you some of what the reaction was when he was on the floor of the stock exchange.
What's up, guys? It's 9:48. Shouldn't you be making money? What's up, guys? How we doing?
Anybody who's our guy, you're our guy. This is it. You are our guy.
As one of the traders there on the floor of the stock exchange saying, if anybody's our guy, you're our guy. You're our guy. And there's a general enthusiasm that, for one, young establishment James called Morning in America. He compared it to Ronald Reagan. Yeah. I guess the parallels are there because Reagan was the last guy to do this in 1985.
There's a clip of Ronald Reagan when he goes up to the stock exchange in 1985. And I think for a long time when we thought about it, personified what America was at that time. And right as he rings the bell, he goes, "We're going to turn the bull loose." And you just see a bunch of ex-frat guy, Wall Street types yelling, "Ronnie, Ronnie, Ronnie." And now you see that. And the presence Trump has, I think, was more than that of Reagan.
Yeah, there's the traders and the media, perhaps, there on the floor of the stock exchange, all chanting the same thing they do from the seats at Madison Square Garden during a UFC fight in New York City, chanting USA, USA, USA. It does feel, I will give you this, it does feel like Morning in America. Let's see, last week I was at the Patriot Awards with Fox Nation. I think I heard this story twice. I'll tell you where I heard this story. I heard it earlier this week in Alabama with the Alabama Farmers Federation. I met several farmers whose sons have gone on to become airline pilots. This is just a quick story for you. Two fathers said, my son is scheduled to start flying for American or Delta. But they both told me a similar story where they weren't hired right away until after November 4th. They were put on some type of waiting list, waiting for a job offer. But right after November 4th, the call came, we're ready. You ready to start flying? It's just like this sense you get, and you hear it. You hear it anecdotally, this sense of the economy is about to boom. This does feel like morning in America. And I would suggest it is good for America. If you see there on the floor of the stock exchange, people celebrating with chants of USA, the return of Donald Trump. It feels like it could be. How about this? It's going to be a very big year in 2025. We're going to break down the media reaction to Luigi Mangione versus, here, pop quiz. As you're listening or watching, can you, off the top of your head, I give you 5 seconds, name the would-be assassin of Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania? Give me his name. Can you pull it as quickly as you can say Luigi Mangione? I doubt it. So we're going to break into that. Why? I'll give you his name a little bit later if you're still stumped. Why? Why do we know so much about the alleged murderer of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson and so little about the man that took a shot at President Trump? But let's start the show with Dr. Drew Pinsky and story number 1. Dr. Drew Pinsky is the host of Ask Dr. Drew. He's a board-certified internist. He's an addiction medicine specialist, and he's on X at Dr. Drew, and he's been with us several times here on the Cain Show, for which we are grateful. Good to see you again, Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew.
You too, Will. Happy to be here.
What do you make of the psychology? I don't know, like a mass psychosis or a mass psychology analysis of our culture at large, but also, I don't know, the individuals right now that are taking up the cause and championing alleged, accused murderer Luigi Mangione.
Right. So there are really 3 ways of looking at this. One is, as you said, on the individual level where people are expressing reprehensible moral sensibilities, truly reprehensible, saying things like, I experienced joy when I heard about this man being shot, or people are just fed up. I'm not going to name names. Everyone knows who said that yesterday on media. You can't, Will, if you want, go ahead. But people are just fed up, and what do you expect? It's an explicit endorsement of murder if you happen to be frustrated with a business owner. This is a disgusting, reprehensible moral sensibility, and people need to look at themselves. This is not okay. Now, that's one aspect of this. The other, and this is sort of the more humorous aspect, is the fact that they're now all, Jimmy Kimmel read some stuff last night about these women being interested and attracted to this man, not just really because he's an attractive man, but because he's a criminal. And that has a name. That is a illness called hybristophilia. That is a impairment that affects functioning. That is not something that is okay. Again, if you were in the moral failing category, take a look at yourself. If you have hybristophilia, you're likely to be a trauma survivor and be repeating that trauma in your relationships, and you need to know that about yourself. Act accordingly. And I see you smiling. Well, do you have any questions about that category before I go to the final and third?
You give me the final and third. I'm going to follow up on all 3.
All right. So the final, you asked you appropriately asked what's going on a mass scale. And what this is of course mass formation, another manifestation of that. However, the mass formation during COVID and during Me Too was focused on the cancellation mechanism. And cancellation is a scapegoating mechanism. It is no different than the use of guillotines in 1794 France. No different. Same impulse, same mass formation. It's an acting out of violence around injured narcissistic people where they focus their aggression en masse on one. Cancellation was the precursor to where we are now, where they are literally acting it out violently. So we now actually, Robespierre would be delighted with this. We are now actually into the violent phase of scapegoating. It is not okay.
Wow.
It needs to be called out wherever it happens. People that are engaged in this are not well. All 3 categories are sick, and we need to understand it as such.
I want to walk through each one of your 3 points, which I love, those 3 bullet points analyzing this, but I'm going to do it one at a time. So let's talk about the first, that these are just the sick individuals, and you kind of reference some. Let's just play a clip. I don't have to say it. You don't have to say it. I don't know if this is the one you're referencing, but I give you Elizabeth Warren first talking about this. Senator, let me just clarify. Senator Elizabeth Warren talking about this alleged murderer.
This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of UnitedHealth, but you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
Yeah.
That is
That's
an
a sitting
endorsement.
senator, Dr.
That is an
Drew.
endorsement of the behavior.
I know. Is that an
And-
endorsement?
and
What is that from
everybody
Warren?
Get on social media and go, oh, Elizabeth, we see you. We see you. You are morally reprehensible. We see you now. Okay, got it. Everybody, pay attention.
Yes.
She's showing you who she is.
You know, I don't know. Actually, I don't know who you were referencing earlier. I know we've seen Taylor Lorenz, formerly of the
Taylor
New York
Lorenz was
Times
the
and
other one.
Washington
She was
Post.
the other one. Taylor
Yeah,
Lorenz was
showing
the
joy.
one.
But
Yeah,
you know what?
that was-
Taylor Lorenz is a certified sick person, almost paid for her insanity. She's a person in 2024 still throwing COVID-safe birthday parties. I don't mean that as a joke. I mean that literally. She's throwing COVID-safe birthday parties. She's an insane person. Warren is a sitting senator. To your point, like, that does sound like an endorsement of violence.
Yes. I don't know how far, like, I would not, unfortunately, I would not accept any dialing back from her because she just exposed who she is. Listen carefully. People are declaring themselves now. They are declaring themselves, and people who are getting swept into these mass formations, that 20% that become evangelical and are still having the COVID parties and wearing the mask and demanding other people do the same, you would be the prison guards in 1940 Germany. That's you. Understand that about yourself. You would be a prison guard.
Yes.
You wouldn't be fighting Nazis. You would be evangelizing for Nazis, and you would be a prison guard. And you need to know that about yourself and adjust accordingly.
I wish you wouldn't point at the camera and look at me when you say that, because the clip is going to look like you're talking to me. He's using
I
the
don't know.
proverbial you, okay?
Be careful. Be careful. I don't know you that well.
Well, now I have to figure out where I'm going to fight you or not. Okay. No, I want to go to number two.
Right.
All right, number two, hybristophobia, the attraction, the
Hybristophilia.
physical
Hybristophilia.
attraction to
love of these people. Hybristophilia. Yeah.
Okay. I did it. I was really proud of myself that I wrote it down, thought I was going to get it right. But, you know, it was really always like a 20% proposition. I was going to repeat that word correctly. Hybristophilia. I do know this. Not new, right? Women were attracted to Ted Bundy. Women write letters to men on death row.
Yes.
What I find fascinating, Dr. Drew, is the why. Now, you've clinicalized it. You've given me a name. Yeah. I'm going to give you a little bit of a armchair psychologist here. You tell me if this is part of it.
I also gave it a dynamic. I was unloading a lot of information, but I actually spelled out the dynamic. So let's see if you heard me or if you have your own similar idea.
I think I heard you, but I think I'm going to. So I think that women, for some odd reason, like moths to a flame, are attracted to some element of danger, right? I think that there's a thrill to that is not, I'm not saying that is a clinicalized condition. I think it just is. I think actually not all, but a lot of women. And that's part of being attracted to masculinity, because masculinity has baked into its cake a certain element of danger, right?
No, that's right.
But like anything else in life, we're talking about degrees, right? Yeah. And so I don't know, the person who's attracted to the element of danger that let's pick up a hitchhiker, let's flirt with the guy that I don't know, there's something inside me ringing that says, don't trust this guy, don't go home with this guy, all the way to, oh my gosh, here's a guy alleged to murder. Now I'm super turned on. I just, that's my armchair analysis. That
well, I
don't know if that's hybristophilia.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
And ultimately at this level, it's a traumatic reenactment. I had a very powerful figure in my life who traumatized me. Number one. Number two, yes, you're right. I mean, people, what they imagine is that powerfulness that they imagine this person has is going to be there to protect, right? But of course, it gets turned upon. That's always the problem. And the third element is that I have a special insight into how wonderful this person is. I'm going to help rehabilitate them. I'm going to restore them to the wonderment that I know them to be.
I'm going to change you.
Yeah. Great.
Let me fix you.
Perfect.
Serial killer.
Well, it's codependency. And so it's codependency, and it's common, and here we are. And it is an acting out behavior. It is. It's not something to be celebrated. And it's something that is deeply concerning. And if you have that, you should be considering talking to somebody, because it's a real thing.
All right, so now let's go to number 3, the mass psychosis side of this. I loved how I think you talked about this when we were together last time, because I now remember that you studied the French Revolution. You're talking about Robespierre. We talked about that the last time we were together here on the Will Cain Show. This is okay. I want to play for you a clip, and then I want to tell you my theory. See if you think it meshes with yours. So first of all, this is last night on Piers Morgan.
It is a healthcare debate.
Hang on. I want to play.
It is a healthcare
Hang
debate.
on, Brianna.
It's a murder debate.
Yeah. It's
a murder debate,
I
not
agree.
a healthcare debate.
People are not excited about. Wait a minute. People are not excited about murder. There are thousands of murders that happen. Well, maybe not thousands, but hundreds, whatever, dozens of murders that happen every day in the United States of America. And those perpetrators are not being celebrated by the public. The public right now is feeling empathy for Luigi. They are feeling some kind of catharsis, schadenfreude, whatever you want to call it.
So you're feeling empathy for an executioner, but not the person he executed.
He's a cold-blooded assassin. No one should be feeling empathy for him.
Exactly.
That is Clay Travis, Piers Morgan, and I forget her name, but it's like Bree Joy or something like that from the New York Times. She's the one making the case for empathy towards Luigi. So I believe. So first of all, Dr. Drew, these are the same people.
Hang on.
Go.
Hang on.
Yeah.
In terms of empathy for Luigi, let me just add a little wrinkle to this. We are going to find out that this kid has a manic psychosis induced from hallucinogen abuse. That's what's going to be uncovered. And so those that want to use this kid are exploiting him as well as exploiting the man that he killed. Both are egregious moral transgressions. This kid is sick. He's mandating, he's carrying a political cross for you. Great. Fantastic. Shut up. This kid is sick and he killed somebody. And that should be as far as we go with this. But go ahead, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
Well, but on the hallucinogenic thing that you're predicting, because he's tweeted about ayahuasca or something like that, or mushrooms. Is that what you're anticipating?
Yes, I have all the enthusiasm for hallucinogenics for various mental health illnesses. I have grave concerns about exactly stuff like this. I've seen people develop manic psychosis. I've seen people's personalities permanently change. The downside is not being properly measured or considered with this enthusiasm for hallucinogenics. Same thing with the high potency weed we're seeing. People are doing dabs and things. It is changing the brains. And that is a major problem. And we need to understand that more before anybody thinks about doing these things.
Well, what do you make of the thing that people are talking about? Like some people close to him are saying whenever he had a back injury, and I think he ended up having back surgery, there are people close to him saying his personality changed after that. Now, there's a lot of, I don't know if he took opioids or painkillers or he just pain itself, or as you're talking about hallucinogenic therapies. But what do you make of this kind of argument that's being made by those close to him that this moment led to a change in personality?
If I were to guess, and it's strictly a guess, and try to construct what might have happened, it would be surgery, painkillers, then seeking alternative ways to manage the pain and the mood problems and probably the addiction. Maybe he went down there for the ayahuasca to try to manage the addiction to opiates. I don't know. But it's the one, then the other, then the next is a pretty common progression these days. And the opioids, they change somebody's personality. They don't do this. What this kid did is not an opioid addiction thing. Not at all.
All right. So I like what you had to say in your immediate rebuttal to that clip where you said these people don't actually have, they're saying it, but they don't have empathy for Luigi Mangione. He is a tool for them.
Correct.
In some like larger, and it's an interesting discussion about what it is they think he's a tool for. Is it class warfare? Is it anti-corporatism? I don't know what it is. And I actually don't, I would expect it's not coherent. It's not actually a coherent ideology. What I think is fascinating.
It's just grievance.
Just grievance in general, right?
Yeah, grievance.
And it's hypocritical, Dr. Drew, and it's inconsistent because these very same people would take up the cause for Palestinians in Gaza. These very same people, in the name of anti-violence, these very same people would be pro-gun control. They're not for guns, and yet here's a guy that used guns to affect a violent outcome. They would describe themselves as pacifist. I'm almost sure they would. So how do you make sense of the hypocrisy? And this is back to your Robespierre thing. I think what's revealed is underneath this grievance ideology is a masking effect over a real violent streak. And it's not that she says in that clip, we don't celebrate murders. Exactly. You don't. You just celebrate some murders because you're willing to embrace violence in pursuit of whatever it is you want to satisfy your grievance.
Seething rage, narcissistic rage. That's what mob action ultimately is, and then it acts it out through scapegoating mechanisms. She used the word catharsis. That's what the scapegoating mechanism is. It's a cathartic way to release rage. People need to understand themselves. There's a spiritual vacuum in this country, and it is bad times. So yes, you're putting your finger on exactly the issue, which is it's all feeling. It has no rational, principled discourse attached to it. You know, we opened the show today talking about Ronald Reagan ringing the bell. I remember that era, okay? And when he came in, he was extremely unpopular. But I remember, I was in medical school at the time, and I remember thinking to myself, well, this man had been in California for a while where I lived, and I thought to myself, he has a set of principles he's operating from, and I think that's going to be good. And I would argue the same thing would apply now. We need a more principled, rational approach to just about everything, and then we need to deal with this spiritual, moral crisis we are in.
Right. I can't have you on, Dr. Drew, without talking to you about not just mental health, but what we hope is a morning in America when it comes to physical health. Next week, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is scheduled to take meetings in the Senate on the way, hopefully, to his confirmation as the head of HHS. One of the things he's talked a lot about is something I know that you care about, but that's processed foods and some specific ones, right? Like red dye.
Yep. Yeah, he's going to look. People misunderstand RFK Jr. I've been working with him for a while. Fundamentally, this man is an expert at taking apart large, complicated systems and removing adulterating influences, corruption, if you will. This is what we want. We want the well-being of the American public be the priority and the sole priority in the manifestations and the workings of these large bureaucratic systems. And to the extent that they're too large or they're too autonomous, get rid of them. And he is an expert at this. He's told me the first thing he wants to do is put in a RICO action against the major medical publications and the pharmaceutical agents, because those relationships amongst the medical journals and with pharmaceutical is severely adulterating the research that we have in this country on medical matters. That's going to go a long way. Get pharmaceutical ads off television and start to break down where our foods are different than the rest of the world's and why, and what we might do to make them healthier. Pretty simple, everybody. Not that big a deal. And guess what? Well-meaning for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can get more of this at Ask Dr. Drew. Of course, Dr. Drew Pinsky is the host of that. And he's an addiction specialist as well as a board-certified internist. I always love having you on the show, Dr. Drew. I always love it when we also end up talking about the French Revolution when I think we're going to talk about red dye number 4 or something. So I appreciate the ability to weave through Robespierre.
The reason is because this present moment, I thought those sorts of movements ended in the 20th century. It turns out humans have always done it. The Jacobins was sort of the modern era, beginning of the modern era of this, and we're doing it again now. We need to be aware of it. We need to adjust our behavior if we get swept into one. We just do this as human beings, and it can end in really bad times. So let's not let that happen.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Drew Pinsky, thanks so much for being on the Will Cain Show.
Right. Thanks, Will.
There he goes. Okay, a plane lands on a highway in Texas while Senator Josh Hawley and comedian Tom Segura, not together, but both point out how the airlines are robbing us. Plus, what about the attack on Pete Hegseth, this time from West Point? That's all coming up on the Will Cain Show. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I recently saw a video he made, and it's shocking. I was shocked. He's still in his 80s, and he's still kicking butt, and he's working out and staying active. And what's even more shocking is he's stronger and can work out longer and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. And he says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner and has energy all day long. Now, Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it. You just got to go to chuckdefense.com/Cain or by clicking the link below this video. It will change the way you think about health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Cain and click on the link in the description below to watch the video now. You won't believe how simple it is. And just as a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old, and he has more energy than me. He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply by focusing on 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. And watch his method by clicking the link in the description box below. That is chuckdefense.com/CAIN. More Will Cain Show coming up. There's a story that bubbled up yesterday suggesting that Pete Hegseth lied about being accepted into the United States Military Academy. ProPublica started to put together a story on this note. And as part of their story, they say 2 sources at West Point said Pete Hegseth never even applied to West Point. That story blew up in their faces with picture proof. That's coming up on the Will Cain Show in just a moment, which you can get on YouTube, Spotify, or on Apple. Just go hit subscribe. All right, I've got 3 stories I want to work through with you today. 3 quick stories that are on everyone's mind. Let's start with number 1. What is going on with all the drones over New Jersey? There is a report that these are coming from an Iranian mothership off the Atlantic coast, sending these SUV-sized drones all over New Jersey. I want you to listen to, who is this guy? Is this Van Drew? Is he a state senator in New Jersey? Who is this that's saying this?
Congressman, yeah.
Congressman?
Jeff
you know what
Van
I heard
Drew.
about him? That he's not, I heard he's a serious dude. Like, he doesn't just, like, fly around off the handle.
Mm-hmm.
I heard this guy, like, this is a serious dude, so
yeah, I've worked with him.
Might listen when he says this.
Yep.
You know him?
Yeah, he used to come on the Guy Benson show a lot, and he's really, really good. Yeah. Really serious guy, really knowledgeable.
Really? He's a pretty sober-minded guy?
Absolutely. Yep.
Established.
You know, I had a Tennessee congressman on Fox and Friends last weekend. We were talking about these drone things, and I don't know what his big takeaway was, except, well, you know, in Tennessee, good old boy with a shotgun solved this problem right away. I mean, he said it multiple times. And I was thinking, well, I don't know how low these boys are flying, and you're going to need to get some, I don't know, 2-shot/buckshot, maybe even a slug in your shotgun to pull these things down because they're SUV size. No bird shot's going to do the job. But it is interesting, by the way, how much ceiling you have in property rights. It's not as high as you think. Like, you could shoot down a drone. Say it's one of those little quadcopter drones, that you get from Sharper Image.
Pew, pew.
Like, I think if that thing's flying 15 feet over your house, you can take it down.
Yeah.
But your property rights end, I don't know. It's not much above that. 25 feet, so.
Yeah, well, what about when they start doing delivery drones and stuff like that?
I know.
Flying all over the place.
We're going to have a lot of conversations about easements, aerial easements. All right, but here is Congressman Van Drew.
From very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly.
Whoa. So the contention there from a very sober-minded congressman is that these are Iranian drones. And I don't know how many. Have you guys seen a number on how many drones are been spotted? Like, are we talking in the 50s? I mean, like 50-ish? It's shocking how many people that we work with have seen them. Like Rachel Campos Duffy.
They live in that area.
Has had them over her house. It's like anecdotally piling up.
And they were...
I just can't imagine we'd let Iranian drones fly over New Jersey for an extended period of time. Like, why wouldn't we do something about that?
I'm not saying a number.
So like the spy balloon?
What? Tinfoil. Here we go. This will be interesting. Tinfoil Pat has an answer.
You can't imagine this? Like literally we had Chinese spy balloons flying over the country, and you can't imagine us allowing this to happen?
So can we just be serious for a moment? Like, why would we allow it? Okay, let's try to be... Okay, one is what you're suggesting, Patrick. I love the nonverbal Patrick. I love the facials, the face expressions. It's great. You can't hear it on... I mean, you say more with your face than you do with your words. That's really interesting. Okay, one, what you're suggesting. Just incompetence, Chinese spy balloon, Lloyd Austin taking days off, not telling anybody where he is. You know, just general weakness and incompetence. That seems to be the first option, right? All right. 2, I remember this during the Chinese spy balloon thing. This was the argument made. They're not getting anything good. We know exactly kind of surveillance technology they have, and it's more valuable to us to watch their maneuvers and watch what they're doing to kind of war game this out than to shoot it down. Okay, that's 2. 3, I'm just thinking out loud. Dangerous to shoot them down? If they're SUV sized and they land like in neighborhoods in New Jersey over homes and dangerous maybe? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here, right?
That's a really good point.
But I also think we shouldn't be guessing. Like, can't we just follow them home? Like, we have our own drones. Can't we just follow them back to the mothership to confirm this?
I mean, it sounds
And then, by the way, shoot the mothership down over the Atlantic. How about that?
It's smart.
It sounds like a war.
Genius thinking.
Should I be Secretary of Defense?
I think you should.
Should I be SecDef?
Yeah.
I think I just did it.
Is
I think I was just
what Pete
SecDef.
is telling you, or are you telling Pete this?
By the way, I just like the word mothership. If there's ever an opportunity to use the word mothership, you should always use mothership. It's great.
That's what.
All right, but by the way, speaking of SecDef, the Pentagon is saying not true about the Iranian mothership. Watch.
Can you rule out that these are American drones or U.S. military drones?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
Representative Jeff Van Drew, who is a Republican from New Jersey, was just on the air saying that Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones, and that mothership is off the coast of the east coast of the United States. Is there any truth to that?
There is not any truth to that. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
Okay, 2 things. First of all, I want to applaud her and everyone's embrace of mothership there. That word was said like 5 times. Second, she is deputy director of what? Sabrina Singh, and I couldn't help but watch that clip thinking, I could have that job maybe. I could do that job. You know?
Easily.
Don't do that to us.
Yeah. The Will Cain Show, we're just live from the press briefing room. That's what we're going to do.
From the Pentagon? That'd be great. I'll move down there.
From the Pentagon.
Yeah.
So she says, it's not Iranian, it's not a foreign entity, and it's not us. Those are 3 things she says. Now, that is either a lie, or what does that leave us? If we accept that she's not lying, what does that leave? I mean, everybody wants to say it, so let's just go through the list. Everybody wants to say aliens. You can say aliens. Get it off your chest, tinfoil. I know you want to say it.
Probably aliens.
I don't think aliens.
Aliens.
I don't think aliens fly drones.
Well,
Presumably, if the aliens are here, they don't need our current drone technology.
That's true. That's a good point.
Right?
Maybe they just want to watch the show.
So what is it?
The aliens just want to see the show. That's going to be the second Trump presidency. They're entertained. The vibes are great. They're
private drones?
Ooh.
Private drones? Could it be that?
It could be us.
Like a business?
Did she say it's not us?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
When she said us, I presume she's talking about
U.S. military.
Military.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
But there are
corporate
companies,
drones.
yes, there are companies that create corporate drones, and it's like becoming a big thing. I believe in like 2025, they're going to start asking for permitting for that. So maybe like they're.
Well, you remember, I thought I saw. Y'all remember when I thought I saw aliens, right? And it turned out it was Starlink. Flying it flies super low. If you ever see one of these Starlink things. But I don't know what this is.
Amazon. What about like?
And she's not leaving me many options.
What about like anything illegal, like cartel stuff? You know, that kind of thing. Maybe they use that for some reason. I don't know.
I think the cartel
dropping things like, you know how they used to drop drugs from planes? Maybe they drop them from drones now in New Jersey, something like that. And you're just not seeing the drops.
Is New Jersey?
There.
Huh.
I'm not saying New Jersey to port. I'm not saying that.
I don't know, but I think it's super weird that no one knows. So much so that it makes me think somebody does know, and the option is they're lying. I don't accept I don't know. I think somebody's lying. All right, story number 2. I want to show you this video clip from Texas. And by the way, guys, while we're showing this clip, I don't know the details. So if one of you guys look this up real quick, I want to know if somebody was hurt. But this is a pretty fascinating moment where a private plane lands. Do you have the audio in this 2 days? Bring the audio up if you do.
I don't. There's lots and lots of swearing in it. So I just did the B-roll of it.
Oh,
says 4
you know what I wanted
injured.
the audio for? No one killed?
No. 4 non-life-threatening injuries.
Okay. That is a private plane. It looks like about maybe like a 6-seater. I mean, it's bigger than a little 4-seater. He lands on the access road to the highway. Everybody's freaking out. By the time you get up to there, he's hit a car. The plane is split into 2 easy, pieces everywhere. The reason I wanted the audio is it's so Texas, by the way, besides the cursing. I love the dude just driving down the highway videoing it, and he's got Amarillo by Morning by George Strait playing in the car radio.
Buddy.
Oh, my God, there's a plane landing.
Baby.
The video flagged anyway, so be good.
Speaking of planes, I did not know this. So this stumbled across my attention span. Tom Segura, comedian. Now, you guys edited this up. You do have audio on this, hopefully.
I do.
This is Tom Segura, funny guy. He got a hold of this moment in a Senate hearing that I did not. Did this hit any of y'all's radar? I didn't see Fox News do this. This is big news to me in my life, how I live my life. And apparently the same for Tom Segura. Watch.
I'm first in line to board. And this goes, hey, you're going to have to check that bag. I'm like, well, this is the same bag I flew here with, and I fly everywhere with this bag. No, it's too big. And I'm like, what? It's because the airlines are paying gate agents to confiscate bags.
How much have you paid people to pull out customers who are in line with a bag that's 2 centimeters too big?
It's $10 per bag.
Wow.
So they're giving them incentives. And everyone's like, oh, you threw a tantrum. It's like, I didn't verbally accost anybody. I didn't physically assault anybody, although it would have been a pleasure.
Yeah.
The point is, I was right. She was just selectively taking a bag to make a few extra bucks.
Your airlines are paying millions of dollars to your employees to harass people who've already paid.
That is crazy. Damn. That's crazy. So we all have this moment of insecurity when we board a plane, right? Like, I don't want them to take my bag. And the reason you don't want them to take your bag, you want to get it in the overhead space, is because you don't want to have to wait on your bag at the back end. That's the whole point of just doing carry-ons, right? And Segura and by the way, because I'm a frequent flyer, honestly, the only reason you want to board early is for this purpose, so that you don't run out of overhead space. You want to get in there and get your bag put up. And it stinks. I'm sorry. If you're boarding group 7 or 8 and they sit there and they go, we have to take your bag. But he's saying he's boarding group 1. He's boarding at the front of the plane, first boarding group, and they're taking his bag. And he's like, first of all, I fly all the time with this bag. If somebody tried to take my bag, I'd be like, why? Like, I've flown literally thousands of times with this bag. Why are you taking it now? To find out she's making $10 a bag to do that, that's
criminal.
Messed up, man. That is really messed up. What about what perverse incentives?
$10?
And I didn't know Senator Josh Hawley had done that. When did that happen? When did that's Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri pressing the airlines? When did that happen?
I think it was this week or within the last couple weeks. I did see it briefly, something similar like that from that hearing.
It's pretty wild what we just accept happens to us when we think there's not a choice, right? We just accept things sometimes where it's like, oh, yeah, sure, fine, take my money for no reason.
Are you saying we can keep our shoes on now?
It's a combo, Dan. It's a combo because I do like the Louis C.K. clip that we are so spoiled that, like, we get on an airplane and we're mad. And I am mad, especially if I pay for it, that the internet doesn't work, right? I don't mind if the internet doesn't work, but I don't think they should be charging you and then it not working. That's like what I pay for.
Right.
But Louis C.K. has that great bit about, like, can you just for a second marvel at the fact that you're sitting down 30,000 feet in the sky?
That's so good.
Like, you're sitting in a metal tube transporting you thousands of miles across the country in a matter of hours, 30,000 feet into the clouds.
No,
like,
thanks.
let's just like, wow.
I don't like
Isn't
thinking
that
about
amazing?
that.
Instead of being mad that they didn't have Diet Dr. Pepper on the plane, you know?
While you have a Zin in your mouth.
I quit.
Sure.
Just as a side note,
Sure.
I
How
am
long?
a
How many
week.
days?
A week.
You haven't been
And aren't you guys
cranky.
glad I made it through the grumpy?
Yeah, you haven't been
Yeah,
cranky.
I didn't have a huge grumpy phase.
I'm proud of you.
And let me tell you something else. Sleeping well. Waking up easily in the morning. Like, yeah, feeling good.
Nicotine hurts your sleep.
The sleep is way better without the Zen. Way better without nicotine. All right, finally, story number 3. We'll do this quickly. Legendary coach. Perhaps the greatest coach of all time. I think he is. I think he is. In the NFL. Bill Belichick is returning to coaching, but not to the NFL. He's going to college football. He's going to be the head coach at the University of North Carolina. This is shocking. And I'm going to put my marker down. It's going to be a failure. It's going to be a huge failure. You can tell me all you want, tinfoil Pat, about NFL factories, and I love old school football. I love Belichick. He's made for the NFL. He's 72 years old. This thing ran Saban out a year ago. All the NIL, transfer portal world, constant recruiting your own players. No way this works for Belichick and UNC.
I disagree.
got the
And
wrong
I'll tell you
button.
why. Because his dad, huh? No, but his dad coached in college. He knows college intimately. Like, that's where he cut his teeth.
Oh,
was
'cause he-
was his dad. His
Oh.
dad coaching through college. Like, he knows college.
What year was that?
The 50s and
1960
60s, but
something?
Come on.
Yeah.
50s and 60s. He knows college football.
It's a
Yeah,
little different
right.
now.
Navy,
He's
baby,
gonna
Navy.
be running the wing tee. You know, it's gonna be fine.
You know what?
Do you think maybe college football's changed a little bit since, the 1950s?
Army's back, so not really.
This can be tied to the cultural shift, because not only is there that Trump cultural shift of going to an America that we thought had lost, but this new age of sports where the young athletes, they want this money, they want the next big thing, they don't want to wait their turn. And Belichick represents that old era of you're going to be gritty, you're going to work hard, you're going to wait in line, you're going to do your job, and he's going to attract the type of athletes that want to be part of that environment.
Wrong.
Wrong.
Sorry.
I'm rooting for Belichick. I actually like North Carolina as well. I just think this is not a match made in heaven. All right, maybe we'll ask that, but I definitely want to talk to Bobby Burack of Outkick about what happened with Pete Hegseth and West Point and the way the media has treated Luigi Mangione versus the would-be assassin of Donald Trump. That's coming up on The Will Cain Show. West Point busted for lying about Pete Hegseth. Why? That's the real question. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand. Just hit subscribe at Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. Bobby Burack is a columnist at Outkick.com, and he joins us now. What's up? Good early afternoon to you, Bobby.
Yeah,
What's
I
going
have
on?
one gripe. I was told by your esteemed producers that I would not be on here unless you were at least 1 month post Zin. Now I just find out in the last segment you're off Zen again.
Yeah, 1 week. But aren't you surprised? Look what a good mood I'm in.
Last time I was on here, you were like 24 hours post Zen, and you were in.
That was bad. I tried.
A little bit of a mood. So I just, I feel like I'm being set up here again by the crew.
Oh, I didn't think about that, Bobby. That's true. I was rough on you last time you were on this show, and I did talk to you and apologize. And I did at least in part blame that on Zen. And then they booked you during another what do we call this? Recovery? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in nicotine recovery.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. But I was just reading this. I think you mentioned this, Bobby. This is kind of fascinating. So I'm just reading this right now. So Van Jones, CNN columnist, or whatever commentator. By the way, I'm watching this show on Netflix called The Madness. It's not very good, but it's like about this black CNN pundit who's framed for a murder of a white supremacist. And I'm like, who's this supposed to be? Is this like Van Jones turned into like a Netflix series hero? Anyway, Van Jones is on some panel, and he's saying the following. He says, I asked my teenage son, I asked him, who's the most influential people in the world today? And I'm thinking myself, he's going to say Barack Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Jay-Z. Instead, he says Kai Cenat, Aiden Ross, Jinxie, and Sketch. And I don't know who he's talking about. And I said, what platform are you on? He said, I'm on Twitch, Kick, and Rumble. I said, that sounds like you need to go to the hospital. What are those platforms?
Yeah.
And then Van Jones says, I'm telling you guys, the mainstream has become the fringe, and the fringe has become the mainstream. And he makes the argument, essentially, that legacy media, mainstream media, is dead. Do you agree it's dead?
I want to say yes, because I think a lot of people who are benefiting from the legacy media are very rotten people. I mean, we've seen what they've done to Pete Hegseth. I know we're going to talk about that. Donald Trump, the lies, the hoaxes. But I don't buy that, because I still think it's demographical based on age. Legacy media still does have influence among people over 40, over 50, particularly over 60. And it surprised me that your son doesn't follow those people and is on Twitch and whatever you said, Kick and Rumble. So the question is, do they eventually overtake TV and radio? I think we're in a transition period, Will, where everything matters, but nothing matters all that much more than the other, right? Like, there's some really successful YouTube shows. I don't know necessarily if they have more pull than a TV show, but that TV show has nowhere near the pull it did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. We're in such a fragmented culture that pretty much, I would argue, every medium is essentially a niche at this point. Some more than others, but I wouldn't say the legacy media is dead. I would say that it's starting to die, is a better way to phrase it.
Well, how about I change it a little bit? It's definitely not dead. That is not true.
Right,
that is wrong. It's not dead.
Not dead.
So, but what legacy media has maintained up until probably really honestly the last 5, maybe a little more than 5 years, is a monopoly. That's what they've had, a monopoly on attention. The only caveat to mainstream media's monopoly, and when I say mainstream media, I mean the largest newspapers in America and the largest television stations, both broadcast and cable, was in the 90s talk radio. And you saw how they reacted to the existence of talk radio, right? Yeah. Rush was huge. Rush was incredibly influential. And he was also mercilessly excoriated, attacked,
every day.
Then comes Fox News, right? Fox comes after Rush. Then comes Fox News. And now it's the fly in the ointment. And it has an entire ecosystem built up around it to attack it. The Media Matters of the world and so forth.
Yeah. Well, and not to interrupt,
so real quick, hold on. And so they had that monopoly. And what's happened is, if you're ranking influence, like I think that Van Jones is just overdoing it like so many pundits do. Like, they try to make this a zero-sum game. And a lot of people have a vested interest in that because they want to say like digital media rises and legacy media falls. And I'm playing both, so I like them both. But they're both important. I think the future is there will not be monopolies. Like the internet's or these digital shows don't replace TV. They don't become the monopoly. Instead, we have fractured attention everywhere we go. And if you're ranking them, honestly, TV still probably is above these ones he rattled off in terms of priority and influence.
Yeah, and we conflate an influential personality versus an entire industry. What I mean is, I would say Joe Rogan is the most influential person in media. However, you're getting the other side of the argument from a combination of CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, the New York Times. So I don't think Rogan alone outweighs all of them, but there isn't that one influential individual within that much larger legacy media ecosystem. And that was always the case with Rush Limbaugh, particularly when he really blew up in the early 2000s. He might have been more influential than most singular people on television, but he was still at a great disadvantage in terms of the overall message. Now, that gap has closed. Again, TV is not what it once was. We see MSNBC, CNN down over 50% since the election. So these networks are not growing. They don't have as much power as they once did, but I still think there's a relatively large portion of America that does still rely on them because they don't have the time to fact check. They just by default find it easier to trust Lester Holt and Dana Bash and Jake Tapper than to go on YouTube and find which podcaster they like most.
Right. Okay, let's move to this story about my former co-host. So this is there's been so many things launched at Pete that I have trouble investing in each one of them. But then you read about it, you're like, oh, I have to address this one too because they're just so dirty. So I think the first one is, tweet that, Dan, what do you, put these up in whatever order. I guess actually Pete's the first one we hear from on this, right? Is he the first person we hear from on this story?
Yep.
I think he is.
Yeah, he tweeted that first and this is a quote tweet over it.
Okay, so Pete tweets out the following, post on X, I guess. We don't say tweets anymore as a verb, I guess. I don't know. He posts on X. We understand that ProPublica, the left-wing hack group, is planning to publish a knowingly false report that I was not accepted to West Point in 1999. And then he says, here is my acceptance signed by the West Point Superintendent, Lieutenant General Dave Chrisman, U.S. Army. And then he has pictures of his acceptance letter. You can read the link. You can read the whole thing. Acceptance letters. Okay, so everybody's like, whoa, what's the story about? Well, immediately now the editor of ProPublica grabs that and he says this. I think what ends up in being a long thread, but he said, Hegseth has said that he got into West Point but didn't attend. We asked West Point Public Affairs, which told us twice on the record that he hadn't even applied there. We reached out. Hegseth's spokesperson gave us his acceptance letter. We didn't publish the story. That's journalism. So this guy, Jesse Eisinger, he really pats himself on the back, right? About, oh, we ran the traps, we did this. And it turns out, when we asked Pete, he gave us the acceptance letter. So it's not a story. But it is a story, Bobby. It's a story for two reasons. Why did ProPublica want to chase this? Was it a rumor? I don't even know what it was. They didn't look into Tim Waltz's record. They don't look into a ton of things, but they're interested in trying to find some inconsistency when it comes to Pete. And then secondarily, maybe more importantly, why did West Point twice on the record tell him that Pete didn't apply or was admitted into West Point when he clearly was?
Right. And I think the biggest story here, and there's a lot of different angles, is, okay, why did they lie? And this really pulls back the curtain of why and how these hit pieces originate. People lie to reporters and they get giddy. They want to chase it because Pete Hegseth is a target. You write about Pete Hegseth in a negative light right now, you get a lot of clicks, subscribers, thumbs up from fellow corporate journalists. Maybe you get someone like Will Cain to go after you, and all of a sudden your story gets much more publicity. But this is how all of these stories start. I mean, I think the most egregious one that I've read, and there's been so many, is that NBC News one that essentially claims that Pete Hegseth was a drunk and was drinking on set and was drunk on set. Well, somebody had to take that story to the outlet, right? Reporters usually don't sit around and just fabricate an initial story. Somebody calls them and says, hey, I have a scoop for you. Then the reporter bites. They start prying and seeing what they can dig up. But you see right now, a lot of the original stories are bogus. And I think there's a track record here. Same thing with Donald Trump. Every once in a while, you read the New York Times and they're quoting 10 anonymous sources and the story's denied. It makes no sense, but it still gets through. Now, luckily, this story was not published. And who knows, if Pete didn't tweet about it, they might have still posted it, because that's what happens a lot. But I want people to understand that people constantly lie and reporters fall for it every single day. Stories get
willingly,
out.
Though. That's the thing. It's willingly falling for it.
Yeah.
Because they're telling them something that they want to believe.
Right.
So that's why it's not journalism that's like even-handed or fair, that this guy at ProPublica should be patting himself on his back about, because he wants to believe. He does believe, actually. He does believe that Pete lied about getting accepted into West Point, because he's like, this is the story. And maybe then he has to try to confirm it. But his interest in it is that he believes this is something that Pete Hegseth would lie about this. And by the way, I don't have my college acceptance letters. I know which ones I got into.
Right.
If I were forced to prove it, how about this? The best college I got into, I'll tell you, is Northwestern, right? I didn't go to Northwestern. Didn't want to go to Chicago, cold. I have no way of proving I got into Northwestern.
Yeah.
I don't have the letter that I know of, that may be in some closet somewhere. And if Northwestern said, no, Will's never been admitted here, it makes me look like a liar. By the way, I think this is the first time I've ever said I got accepted to Northwestern. So I don't even know how you get into this he said, she said with a university. But if they said I didn't do it, I couldn't prove it. Lucky for Pete, he's got that thing, shockingly, showing his admission.
Yeah, and on a smaller scale, just to bring it on a more personal level, in 2020, several outlets ran with a story about you saying that you were leaving ESPN and there was no network that was interested in putting you on TV. They said, oh, he's going to have to go to streaming or go to do an independent podcast, which at the time was not nearly as high profile as it is now. I remember 3 or 4 outlets, including the Washington Post, ran a story, Will Cain leaves ESPN, no TV network wants him. Well, somebody obviously put that message out there, and those reporters so badly wanted it to be true, they just published it, probably without even reaching out to you.
Well, at least they said Will Cain leaving ESPN. I mean, my favorite is all the people say I got fired from ESPN, which did not happen.
Right. But like if they would have actually done their job, they probably could have figured out that you were going to Fox News, going to TV. I mean, it's pretty easy to get media scoops. People talk, everybody, producers, agents, talents, but they didn't even try to do that because you were an enemy in sports media, particularly among sports media journalists. Now, again, that is not nearly as large of a scale as what they're doing to Pete, but it just shows your listeners and viewers how the industry works.
All right, let's figure this out about the industry, the public mindset, but also there's more than just the industry that's failed here. So within days of this Luigi Mangione story, we know so much about him. His name, everybody knows his name. Everybody. We've seen his pictures. We see his social media profile, his Twitter, his X posts. There's a manifesto out, everything, right? I would challenge, and I did people earlier in the show, you've had some time now. Can you recall the name of the would-be assassin of Donald Trump? Like, his name's not even easy to remember because it wasn't blasted out repetitively through the media. And you know nothing about him. You know nothing about him, really. And think about the quantity of coverage and conversation around him. He tried to assassinate a former president and the man running for president. And just look at the information difference between these two situations.
Absolutely. I think it was Thomas. Was it Crook? Thomas, I get it right? Thomas Crook?
Something like that. There's 3 names. Something Thomas Crook.
Yeah, but this goes back to your first question of, is the legacy media dead? We're seeing right now the legacy media did have the power to bury and memory hole the details and identification of the wannabe assassin, but they've been able to plaster this Luigi guy all over the internet, all over the TV. So it does show, unfortunately, these guys still do have some power. And this whole story is so frustrating to me. Like Taylor Lorenz, what she's doing is so fundamentally evil. Elizabeth Warren, the senator, put out that warning yesterday. Well, I don't accept murder, but this should be a warning to all of the other healthcare executives. People can only take so much. Look, if murder was acceptable to every CEO of a corrupt industry, there would be no CEOs in DC, New York, and Silicon Valley left, right? All these fat cats are probably corrupt, probably very selfish, egotistical, and not the most honest brokers. But for the people justifying that this father of two husband deserved to be executed, Taylor Lorenz says she found joy in it. It's really sick, awful, and I think it just shows how far we've drifted away as a society where even a story like this is now the leading culture war topic.
Yeah, it's crazy. It truly is. We broke it down with Dr. Drew Pinsky a little bit earlier in the show. You got to hear his 3 reasons why this has happened. It was really, really good with Dr. Drew. As was this conversation. Bobby Burack, you can always check him out. He's a columnist at Outkick.com. See what he's writing about. It's always insightful. It's always smart. It's always independent. So head over there and check out Bobby's work. Thank you, Bobby.
Hey, appreciate it, Will.
Okay, we'll see you next time. Okay, that's going to do it for me today here on The Will Cain Show. I hope you will leave us a 5-star review if you think it's so deserved on Apple, Spotify. Hit subscribe. Jump into the comments section on YouTube or Facebook. We'll call you a member of the Willisha if you do. I'll see you again next time.